Hello folks. I've seen questions about the Midiplus USB audio interfaces that are available on Amazon. They are relatively inexpensive and may look tempting with the dodgy availability of Behringer and other inexpensive interfaces over the last year or so. So I picked up a couple of them to see if they are worth your time and money. I'll also compare them to a $48 Behringer UM2 interface, which did just start to become available again from what I've seen. I have here the Midiplus Smartface and the Smartface II. After ordering them, I did end up finding the Smartface II available under a different brand, but it was clearly the same interface. So this is likely a generic design that multiple brands are sticking their name on. So far, I've been recording with the Smartface using a Tascam TM280 condenser microphone. In terms of build quality, they both have extruded aluminum cases, and the headphone volume knob feels okay on both of them. However, the gain knobs are very loose and wobbly. Internal build quality on the Smartface II doesn't stand out as too bad, but not great either. The inside of the Smartface is worse. There's very few components in general, has a very basic design, and neither of them actually have any name brand components. The inside of the Smartface they actually had a couple of stray solder balls on the board as well. And weirdly, the Allen head screws holding the Smartface together were all loose, and I was able to remove them with my fingers. Also, the screw holding the RCA jacks to the rear plate was completely stripped out. My favorite thing about this interface is that the icon for the phantom power button is a little ghost. It's kind of funny. In comparison, the Behringer UM2 has a plastic body, but it is otherwise built nicer. The board and components and the potentiometers for the knobs are all a bit better. In terms of performance, the Smartface does not have direct monitoring in the headphone jack, so there is no way to directly monitor my voice while I record. I can play back computer audio through the Smartface headphone out, but the audio quality of the headphone jack is terrible. There is some hiss, there's also quite a lot of digital noise, and the frequency response is terrible. I tried it with multiple pairs of headphones, and it seems like the lows are rolled off below maybe 400 hertz, and even the mids are a bit muted. It really sounds bad, so the headphone output is basically useless. Fortunately, the actual audio that gets recorded sounds better in terms of frequency response. However, the noise floor is high, and there is a similar digital noise to what the headphone jack has. Now I've switched out to the Rode PodMic, which is a dynamic microphone, and I have the gain on the interface maxed out. I'm only an inch or two from the microphone, and the levels are still really low. I'll put on screen how much I had to boost the levels to get what you are hearing now. The max gain on this interface is relatively low, and the noise is quite bad. Something like a cloud lifter would probably help, but at that point, you'd just be far better off getting a better interface to begin with. I know that there is still more I could cover, but at this point, the quality of this interface is so bad, I'm just going to call it a non-recommend and move on. Now I'm recording with the Smartface II, and I'm back to the Tascam 280 condenser mic. When listening to computer audio, the headphone output on the Smartface 2 is much better in terms of frequency response, and it is a bit cleaner as well. Though there still is a little bit of digital humming kind of squealing noise that gets louder and quieter depending on the exact position of the option switches on the back. This model does have direct monitoring. Unfortunately, even with the headphone volume maxed out, I can barely hear my voice in the headphones. If I switch it to stereo, it gets a tiny bit louder, but it's still unusably quiet, and then it's only in the left ear. I also found that when I tried to use both mic inputs on this interface, the second input is unusable. For some reason, mic input 1 is output as a dual mono signal, and nothing is output from input 2. If I switch direct monitoring to stereo, I can hear input 1 in my left ear and input 2 in my right ear, but no matter what channel I select in my audio program, no matter what combination of settings I use on the interface, I can only get audio from input 1. No matter what I tried, input 2 gives nothing out to the computer. Now I've switched to the PodMic. The mic preamps are actually a bit cleaner on the Smartface II, but surprisingly, this one has even less gain. It is maxed out right now with the PodMic, and I'll put on screen just how much I've had to boost the audio. Even with the condenser mic, I had to have the gain nearly maxed out. Just to give you an idea of how low the gain is on this interface, I have a little clicker that I use to sync my audio. So instead of clapping, I just have a little button I press that makes a clicking noise. I have to like hold that thing. With most microphones, most times before I'm going to do something, I have to hold the thing like down as low, like my arm all the way straight down and kind of almost half behind me to keep it from clipping the audio because that thing is just so loud. I can literally hold that thing right up to this microphone and press it and it doesn't clip, even with the gain on this interface maxed. So, and I mean, I can barely see the audio waveform even showing up on my DAW right now. But regardless of all that, at this point, I'm just going to flat out say I do not recommend this interface either. It's possible I got a defective unit, but there are multiple problems, and the audio quality just isn't that great anyways, and the gain is low, and it's just, I don't recommend it. For a quick comparison, I just switched to the Behringer UM2 audio interface, and I'm still using the Rode PodMic. I do have the gain maxed out, and I am only 1 to 2 inches from the mic. This dynamic mic is a stretch for the preamp in this interface, but the levels are far better than I was getting on either Midiplus model. I'll post on the screen now how much I had to boost the level. The headphone output has direct monitoring with plenty of volume to spare, and it sounds much better than either Midiplus model. This interface isn't perfect. It doesn't have the quietest preamps in the world or the most gain, and I've seen tests that rate its dynamic range pretty low. But it is so much better than the Midiplus interfaces, it's not even close. They have been a little bit tough to find lately, but they are starting to be available again, and if you can find it for its normal price, it is only $48, so it's still an inexpensive interface. And just realizing that I hadn't mentioned it before, the Midiplus Smartface was $42, and the Smartface II was $55. One way or another, I do not recommend either of the Midiplus interfaces. The quality is just not there. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. As always, thanks for watching. Take care.